Welcome to Noble Character Crafts. My name is Amy. I'm coming to you from eastern Nebraska, where I live with my husband and our 5 children. Today is Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. A huge welcome to any new or returning viewers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you really enjoy this episode. I will have links to the places that you can find me in the description box below, as well as the show notes for this episode. This is a channel all about my crafty life, and today I have knitting and crocheting to share with you all. I'm hosting a year-long make-along on Instagram called the Make 9 2023 Mal, and that's for you to join in the Make 9 challenge, where you can choose 9 projects that you would like to work on this year and post a grid of those 9 projects to Instagram. And then anytime that you work on one of those projects or finish one of them, you can include the hashtag Make 9 2023 Mal in your post, and that will include you in the drawing to win a prize, which I draw periodically throughout the year. You can include any whips in your projects, and you do not have to finish anything off of your board, so you can certainly join in at any time throughout the year. It is just a participatory make-along, and so I would highly encourage you to join in if you haven't already. I have a couple of prizes to give away today. These are both prizes that were gifted to me by Danielle of Midwest Stitches, and now I am gifting them off to you all. So the first one is a sock yarn called Flocked Sock, Scandinavia. I don't know what this brand is. Maybe it's Elena Garnet, perhaps. Let's see, the color number is 1473. The makeup is 75% virgin wool superwash and 25% polyamide. It looks like it is a German sock yarn. And it's in these really nice red, white, and blue colors, which I thought would be fitting for the summertime. And the winner of this skein is on Instagram, The Random Life of Katie. So congratulations to you. I will be so happy to get this off in the mail to you if you just send me a message either through Instagram direct message, or you can send me a message through my email, which I will have linked in the description box below, and let me know your full name and mailing address, and I'll be so happy to get these off in the mail to you, or this off in the mail to you. And the second prize is a skein of Regia sock yarn called Cotton Color Tutti Frutti. When Danielle sent this to me, along with a lot of other yarns, she had a lot of them already caked up, and so I just rewound this back into a hank. So that's why it's in this form. Regia usually comes in a skein like this, I believe. But anyway, let's see. The color number on this is 02421, but here is a picture of, it's supposed to be a watermelon type of yarn. And the makeup of this is more summer friendly, I believe. When I put this label back on, I think I might have covered up the makeup of it when I taped it together. Let's see if I can find, I kind of folded the label over itself, and I think the percentages of what it's made up of, yeah, were underneath there. 72% cotton, and 18% polyamide, and 10% polyester. So another German sock yarn, but this one more, non-traditional, being more summer friendly with that cotton in it. The winner of this skein is at Sylvia Fickiert. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, on Instagram. Congratulations to you. Same for you, just get in contact with me either through direct message on Instagram or through my email. Congratulations to the both of you. And again, thank you to Danielle for sending this yarn my way so that I can then bless you all with it. Please continue to join in the make-along. If you haven't already, I would be so happy to have you join in throughout the year. I have several finished objects to share with you all. I normally record on a Friday, which would have been 5 days ago. Is that right? Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 4 days ago. But last week, our family all participated in VBS, Vacation Bible School, at our church, and so we were really busy with that, and VBS just completely knocks me out for some reason. I get so exhausted helping with VBS. It's secretively not my favorite thing in the world. I don't love it, but I do it just because I feel like that's the right thing to do. No, it was fine. It's just so exhausting, and so I get home from VBS, it goes until noon, and then I get home and I just feel like I've been hit by a semi truck or something. I don't know, it exhausts me. My daughter and I helped out with the nursery, so it was really fun. It was fun to help out with the babies. And, but of course a lot of them were really sad that their moms or dads had dropped them off in our nursery. But we were watching the kids whose parents were volunteering to help out with other things throughout VBS. So anyway, they were all in the building, so if we had any emergencies, we could go get them. But anyway, that explains why I'm recording a few days later than I normally would, and I was able to finish a few extra things in the meanwhile, so I have several finished objects to share with you all. The first one is this gorgeous cardigan that I have been working on for a while now. This was a test knit that I did for Amy Lowden of Tailoress Studio, and this pattern is called the Maybury cardigan. So it has not yet been released. It's still in the testing phase. I started this on April 25th and I finished it on June 5th. And I'm really so happy with how it turned out. It is knit from the top down. The band is knit using double knitting while you're knitting. So you knit the band while you're knitting the garment. So it's not an extra thing that you have to do. You're just doing it along the way. And then the body of the cardigan is knit using fisherman's rib. I'd never done either of those two things before, so I was super happy to learn a few new techniques. And I really enjoyed both the fisherman's rib and the double knitting. It's a slower process in making this type of stitch. I just really thoroughly enjoyed the process of making this cardigan. I thought it was really enjoyable and relaxing, and I just loved making it. Anyway, like I said, it's knit from the top down and has all these beautiful, I just love the increases throughout it. I think it's so beautifully designed, and I'm so happy with it. The yarn that I used is Knit Picks, 2 different yarns by Knit Picks. The first is Palette, which is a fingering weight yarn, 100% Peruvian Highland wool in the Calypso Heather colorway, and I held it together with a lace weight silk mohair blend called Aloft in the Kenai colorway. And it turned out, yeah, I'm just so happy with it. I had these buttons on hand, so I thought those looked perfect with the color of the yarn, and they fit perfectly in these some pretty small buttonholes that are really, they're made in a different way than I've ever made a buttonhole before, but worked out really well. Let's see, I knit this garment on a US 6 4mm needle for the majority of it. The ribbing was all knit on a US 2.5 3mm needle. All of the ribbing on just the cuffs, I guess, is 1x1 ribbing, and then I did a tubular bind off for the cuffs. But I'll stand up in a minute, but the bottom of the cardigan is just the same fisherman's rib pattern, but I did go down to the 2.5mm, I'm sorry, the 3mm needle for the bottom part. I forget how long that was, maybe an inch or so. It's a certain number of rows, but anyway, I just followed the pattern for that. The only modification that I made was that I shortened the pattern slightly by omitting a certain section of rows, which is detailed in the pattern as well. There's a certain section of rows that she indicates that those could be omitted if you want to make the cardigan a little bit shorter, or you could repeat that section to make the cardigan longer. I just decided to omit those because I really liked the length of the cardigan. I don't think I made any other adjustments to the pattern from what I had, as far as the pattern that I had, but there is an adjustment from what I made to what the pattern will be released in, and it's still a little bit noticeable. So there is a line right here on both sleeves. I thought it was it's quite a bit less noticeable than I think it was at first. I did just steam block this to try to get this line to disappear a little bit, but I think you can still see it if you're looking closely. When I knit the sleeves, the original pattern that I had been sent to me, there was a mistake in it and it didn't get caught. I didn't catch it, and anyway, it got caught. The mistake got caught after I had already finished both of my sleeves, but there was a mistake in that I knit the wrong stitches. So instead of doing a knit row, I did a purl row. So anyway, it was just kind of, the fisherman's ribbing is kind of off by one row right there, and it's a little bit visible. So that's the sleeve separation, or where the sleeves started. And there was a little mistake originally. It's been fixed now. So if you decide to make this cardigan, you won't have that seam like I do, but I don't think it's definitely not worth ripping back the sleeves to fix that one little line. I don't think it's that noticeable. I don't know. If I look for it, I can see it, but it's just what it is. It's gonna have to be there because I'm not going back to fix it. Let's see, anything else? I made the third size. I met gauge with the recommended needles, and yeah, it went really well. I highly recommend this pattern. I think it is so beautiful and a joy to make. Not the fastest knit in the world, but really it didn't take me that long, a little over a month, so I love it. I'm gonna stand up so you can see it a little bit better. So here you can see the complete garment. I really love it. I'm not sure about how much I omitted from the length, but it's still quite long on me. It's sitting at my hips. My natural waist is up here, so just to kind of give you an idea of how it is. So the original cardigan, I believe, has 6 buttons, and mine only has 5 because I omitted one of those button repeat, like a repeat that would have included an extra buttonhole. The sleeves are so fun and voluminous. I followed the pattern exactly for those. They did turn out just a little bit longer than I would have probably needed them, but they're okay. They're great. I'm happy with them. Turn around so you can see the back of it. I think it's great. I'm very, very happy with it. And I hope I get a lot of use out of it. It's kind of, you know, not a really neutral color, but I think it could go with a lot of stuff. It looks cute with jeans as well. It probably looks cuter with jeans than with this dress, but I don't want to change. So anyway, it looks cute with it over a dress too, though. So yeah, I really love it, but as last time, it's very warm and I can't stand to keep this on any longer, so I'm gonna take it off before I overheat. While I'm standing up, I'm going to go ahead and show you my next finished object, which is this beautiful baby blanket. Isn't it lovely? I think it turned out so sweet. This is a beautiful pattern that I was gifted by the designer. This is the Caitlin Zigzag blanket by Elimee. I always have a hard time with that name. Elimee Designs. And it was such a joy to crochet. I really, really loved making it. Last time I recorded, I was about here, I would say. And so I hadn't gotten too far into the process of making it. And I wonder if I'm holding it the right way, but I had about that much done, whether it's this way or the other way. I can't quite tell unless I look really carefully. But anyway, it turned out to be a really nice size. I followed the pattern exactly as far as the number of stitches to start with, and then I just repeated the zigzag motif, which is a 5-row repeat, and I repeated that for a total of 16 repeats of the 5-row pattern, and then I ended with one more row of row 1. So the finished item measures 33 by 40 inches. The yarn that I used is Bernat Baby Coordinates in peach for the main color, and then white for the border color, which I'll talk about in a minute. That is a blend, a DK weight yarn that has a blend of acrylic, rayon, and nylon. And I just really love how it turned out. I think it's just a really nice size. and we'll make a nice gift for somebody down the line. I did modify the pattern for the border, so I'm gonna sit back down and then I'll talk through that a little bit more. So the peach colored yarn I was gifted by my friend Tina. She was just de-stashing some things from her yarn and gifted that to me. I had 3 skeins of that, and I had mentioned when I first started making this blanket that I did not have enough yarn according to the pattern to make the pattern fully using that peach yarn. And I had tried to look online to see if I could get some more of this Bernat Baby Coordinates yarn, but it looks like it's discontinued, and I could find it, but it was going to be pretty expensive. And it was hard to find a color that would go well with the peach. For me anyway, the colors that I did find were not going to look very nice with the peach color. Anyway, I was contacted by a viewer of this channel. Isabella is her name, and she said that she had some of this Baby Coordinates yarn that she was willing to give to me. So that was so great. Thank you so much, Isabella. And she had a partially used skein of this white Bernat Baby Coordinates that she sent my way. So that was perfect. I didn't even have to use much, well, I mean, not really that much of it. I still have quite a bit left over for another project. So that was great, and it worked out so well, and I think it looks so nice. Originally, I was just planning on using what I could of this peach and bordering it with the peach, but I really think that the white gives it such a nice look to have that different contrasting color for the border, and I really love how it worked out. So the original border is knit or crocheted kind of in an opposite direction, so you crochet it like this back and forth, and the original pattern shows that it's about this wide. I had thought about doing that because I think I might have had enough with the white, but I thought maybe it was going to make the baby blanket just a little bit too big, and I decided just to do something a little bit more simple. So I followed the first step of the border, which is to go all the way around the blanket using a single crochet stitch, and I did that and followed the instructions for the very first round of the border. But then I just decided to do a simple double crochet stitch, which is what the entirety of the blanket is done in, double crochet stitch US terms. I just did a double crochet stitch for 2 rounds, 2 extra rounds all the way around the border, and in the corners I did 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. And I like the simplicity of how that finished it off, and I think it's a good sized border. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. It was a joy to make. The yarn wasn't the easiest thing to work with. It would kind of catch a lot of times on itself. It's a different construction. It's like got a fluffier yarn, and then it's really kinky, and it has a smaller thread that runs around it as well. I don't know if you can see that very well, but sometimes that extra little thread would kind of catch and pull out in an odd way, but it worked out well. I used a G 4mm hook for this project, and I started it on May 16th and finished it on June 17th, so it took me almost exactly a month to make. So that is great. I love making baby blankets. If you have watched before, you know that well, but I just tend to always have a baby blanket on the go. I just really enjoy making them, and I love having a stash of baby blankets to gift as you know, the time is fitting to give a baby blanket. It's nice just to have a stash. I have a really good stash right now. This is probably the best I've been as far as having a good stash of gifts to give. I have 3 blankets that would be really appropriate for a girl baby, and 3 that would be great for a boy blanket. Some of them are pretty versatile. A couple of them could go either way, of course, but you know, some blankets are just more girly looking. This looks, I think, more girly. So anyway, I'm so happy with that, and thank you again, Nicola, for gifting me that pattern. I really enjoyed making it so much. Okay, what should I show next? I think I'll show these little cuties. I made a tiny little pair of baby socks. This is the Perfect Newborn Baby, let me see, where did I put that? Perfect Newborn Socks by Tabitha Gandee. I've made this pattern several times before, at least a couple of times before, I guess. I started these on June 11th and finished them the next day on June 12th. They're super fast project to work up. I used US 0.2mm needles. This yarn is Maker's Haven yarn, but I do not know the colorway. It was actually gifted to me by the person that these are going to. So Nicole is going to soon become a grandmother, and she asked if it would be possible for me to make a pair of baby socks for her new grandson. And I was so happy to work these up. And I thought it was so perfect that I had this blue yarn that she had gifted to me, and now I am gifting these back to her using that same yarn. So I thought that was so sweet. There's two options in this pattern. You can either do this ribbed version, or there's also an option to make a cabled little baby sock. They're so sweet. Looking at them, they look like they'd be way too small for anything, but they do have a lot of stretch to them because of the ribbing. So they do stretch over a newborn's feet. So they're just so cute though. I have said before, when I've made these before, that these would make a really good first sock project. If you've never knit socks before, it would be kind of fun to start with these because it goes through all of the parts of a sock. It's a top-down sock. It has a heel flap and gusset, and or heel turn and gusset, and it's not, you know, exactly the same construction as an adult sock, but it's very close. And anyway, so it's just a really fast and easy way to just work up a tiny little sock. And they would also make really cute ornaments, I think, for a Christmas tree or something like that, or even a garland. I've seen people make a garland of these for like an advent calendar or something like that and put a little chocolate inside or something like that. So it's just such a fun little pattern. It is free also. I think that is it. I followed the pattern exactly for these. So yeah, just a super sweet pair of baby socks. The next finished object I have is another pair of socks, but these are my size. I have been working through my Knit Picks Felici sock stash this year, and these are the socks that I knit for this month of June. I've also been using my collection of Crazy Sock Lady designs to knit through this year. I have several of Kay's patterns, and I haven't knit all of them yet, and so I thought, well, I'll just try to work through several of those patterns that I haven't tried out yet as I work through my Knit Picks Felici stash this year. So each month throughout the year, I have scheduled out to make a pair of Knit Picks Felici socks, January through November, and I am so happy with how these turned out as well. This colorway is called Side Pony, and the pattern is called the Road to Home Socks by Kay Litton of Crazy Sock Lady Designs. I made these using US 0.2mm needles again. I started using the medium size, which is a 64 stitch count, and I did the 2x2 ribbing for the length of 3 color stripes. That's not quite 20 rounds, probably about 17, but I never counted them. And after the ribbing, I decided to decrease my stitch count to 60 stitches because that's what I usually go for if I'm just making myself a pair of vanilla socks or something like that. I use a 60 stitch count because it fits my leg and foot best. And I thought that this pattern would work really well to modify it to be a 60 stitch count. So the only difference between the 3 sizes that are offered in the pattern are the amount of stitches along the side, if that makes sense. So the smaller size has, I think, maybe 2 stitches on the side, and then, well, or maybe only 1 stitch, I'm sorry, probably only 1 stitch, and then, I don't know. there's just, and in medium maybe goes up to 3, and then large goes up to 5. I'm just kind of guessing, and I don't want to give away too many details. But anyway, I just I did a knit 2 together stitch at the beginning and the end of, why can't I communicate this well? So I knit my socks magic loop 2 at a time. And so on one needle, I have 32 stitches, and I just did a knit 2 together at the beginning and the end of that first section, so that I had 30 stitches on my first needle for each sock, and then I did that on the back side too, so it was a total of 60. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, so that's one modification that I made. And then I also, whenever I did a color change, if the color striping changed color, then I knit all of those stitches. I didn't do any purl stitches, so that I wouldn't get any of those little purl blips. So that disrupted the stitch pattern along the front of the sock a little bit, but it's not that noticeable, I don't think. Anyway, let me just turn this so you can kind of see the zigzag type pattern that the purl bumps make. It's not as visually apparent as it would be in a more tonal sock color, I suppose, but I think you can kind of still see the purl bumps make this zigzag stripe. There's 3 columns of those going down the front of the sock. But my favorite part of this sock is this side stitch, which is called a grass stitch. I just love these columns of this grass stitch, and that I think looks so cool with the self-striping. So since I modified my stitch pattern, I only have 4 stitches in between these columns, but I really love how that looks. I think that's so cool, and I don't know if you're up to this, Kay, but if you're interested in making another sock pattern, I think that this would be so cool for self-striping yarn, to just have this column of grass stitches running all along the sock. So just having this grass stitch separated by some stockinette, by a few stitches. I just think that would be a really cool pattern. If you're up to making a new sock pattern, Kay, I think it would work great to just use that grass stitch and make like columns of it, because I think it looks so cool with the self-striping yarn, but it would look neat with anything, I think. I might just, try to do that on my own anyway. But anyway, I thought I would just mention it. I think that part looks so cool. Anyway, for the heels, I used a different yarn. I used Knit Picks Stroll Tonal in Knit Picks Stroll and Seashell Tonal. Both of these yarns are 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and a fingering weight. And then I also just added in the slip stitch detail to the ball of the foot, as I always do on my own socks. That just helps to prevent me wearing holes in my socks in that part of my sock. I tend to do that really easily, and that really helps to prevent me wearing holes in the socks in that area. So I love how these turned out, and this is my, it's one of the socks that I have completed for Summer Sock Camp 2023 that Kay is hosting. So happy with those. I think I covered everything on those. Yes. Next, I finished the Shorty pair of socks that I was making for my friend Tina. I had made a full-length pair of socks for her using this beautiful yarn, and there was a little bit left over, and I asked if she would like a pair of Shorty socks, and she said that she would. So for these, I cast on 60 stitches. I did 2x1 ribbing for 15 rounds, went straight into a slip stitch heel flap and heel turn, and then went to the main color. This color is just some yarn that I dyed myself. Again, a 75% superwash merino wool and 25% nylon base. And then the main color is Nomadic Yarns in the My Girl colorway, and that's also 75-25. And I just love it. It's such a fun, bright, cheery colorway. This yarn here was gifted to me by another viewer of this channel named Adriana. So thank you so much, Adriana, again for gifting me that yarn. And yeah, I'm so happy with how these turned out. I hope that you really love them, Tina. I usually make her full-length socks, but I'm hoping that she'll like these Shorty Socks as well. I again knit these on US 0 2mm needles. And I think that's it. Used up almost all of this Nomadic Yarns yarn. Just have a few little tiny bits left over. I finished another pair of Shorty Socks also for Tina, and I didn't even have these started last time I recorded a video. I knit Tina a pair of socks using this yarn a long time ago, another full-length pair. And again, I had a little extra left over and thought it would be enough for another pair of Shorty Socks. This is a Panda Soy yarn by Crystal Palace Yarns in the stained glass colorway. It's fingering weight 49% bamboo, 33% soy, and 18% elastic nylon. I started these, oh, I forgot to mention the Nomadic Yarns socks. I started those on May 23rd and finished them on June 4th. And then these I started on June 4th and finished on June 19th. So just yesterday. I did these almost the same as the last ones, except the ribbing I cast on 60 stitches again, but only did 1 by 1 ribbing for these for 15 rounds. Otherwise, I knit them exactly as I did the last pair. I don't think I've mentioned for the toes, but for the toes for these socks I've done on all 3 of these pairs, I've done rounded toes and Kitchener the toes together. And I follow the Crazy Sock Lady pattern for toes always. So I love how these turned out as well, and hopefully you'll really like these as well, Tina. Surprise, I didn't even tell her that I was making them, so they worked up so quickly though, so that was great. I have a few more finished objects. Okay, I have really enjoyed watching. I'm a rather new subscriber to the Edible Thoughts Makes podcast by Stephanie. I probably no more, maybe I started watching her videos at the beginning of the year or something like that. Maybe not even quite that long, but anyway, she has several episodes. I just never knew about her until recently, and I absolutely love watching her episodes. And she makes, she has made a lot of half and half triangle wraps, which is a free pattern by Purl Soho. And I have been thinking about making that pattern, but you're probably familiar with it because it seems to be very, very popular. But basically, it's just a huge square that you knit using fingering weight yarn, I believe. And it's made using short rows. So you cast on the total number of stitches that you need for the shawl, which is over 200 stitches, I believe. And then using short rows, you decrease to make 1/2 of a triangle, and then you switch colors. I'm sorry, 1/2 of a square. You make the triangle using one color, and then you switch colors halfway through, and again, still using short rows, knit the second half of the square in a different color. I had sent her a message asking what would be the difference between making the half and half triangles wrap as opposed to just making a simple dishcloth like pattern, you know, where that's how most dishcloths are knitted as well, is working from one, you know, you could just knit like half of it and then change colors and then do the decreases. So it's kind of the same idea, I thought, but I didn't quite understand the advantage to the half and half triangle wrap as opposed to just doing the typical type of pattern that you would find for a dishcloth. Does that make sense? I hope so. Anyway, I asked her if she had any thoughts on what the difference would be. And she said she'd never knit a dishcloth before, but suggested that I make a swatch. And I was like, oh, of course, that's a great idea. And then I looked on Purl Soho's website, and they actually have a dishcloth, a half and half dishcloth on their website, which essentially is a usable swatch, I thought. So it is actually a pattern that they have on their website called the Colorful Half and Half Washcloths by Jake Canton for Purl Soho. And that's what I made because I just wanted to try out the process of making the half and half triangle wrap type thing. Anyway, so I used these 2 scraps of 100% cotton yarn, I'm assuming. I actually don't have labels for either of these, but I'm pretty sure they're both 100% cotton worsted weight yarns. I modified the pattern a lot, however. I used US 6 4mm needles, which are different than the pattern. I only cast on 40 stitches, which is less than what the pattern calls for. I also referred to a video that Stephanie of Edible Thoughts Makes has put up on her channel showing the modifications that she uses for whenever she makes a half and half triangles wrap. So it's called the half and half triangles wrap mods and tips, which includes using German short rows instead of wrap and turns. I think the original pattern calls for wrap and turns for the short rows. And then she also modifies the edging by making a slipped stitch on the edging for a more clean finish on the edging. So I didn't really follow the pattern so much as I followed Stephanie's tutorial, but there is a pattern for this dishcloth. I think there is a modification or a change between the half and half triangles wrap as opposed to this, only by one row when you change colors for some reason. I'm not sure why that is, but at least according to the tutorial that I watched by Stephanie and the pattern I just checked, and it looks like you change colors one row later on the dishcloth, I think, than you do on the half and half triangles wrap, I think. But anyway, I don't think it made that big of a difference. Anyway, I like how this turned out. It turned out a little bit bigger than my normal dishcloths, even though I reduced the stitches considerably. I didn't measure it actually, but I don't have a ruler in hand, but I would guess it's about 9 inches or so square. I love the look of it. I think it's great, but I don't really think that it's very, I would prefer to make a regular dishcloth, and I would prefer to make a shawl using the regular dishcloth like pattern as opposed to doing this. The short row shaping, I just don't think it's as easy to do as a regular granny square, or not a granny square, but a dishcloth pattern is. You have to, well, it's easiest if you use a marker to mark your short rows, and then you got to keep moving the marker every row, and it was okay, but it's not my favorite way to make a dishcloth, and I think I would prefer to make a shawl in this manner, but just using the regular dishcloth pattern. I feel like I'm not being very clear in how I'm wording that, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. I did actually make my regular dishcloth pattern again. So this is the standard dishcloth that I typically make. And I like the process of making this dishcloth so much more than this. But I'm so glad I did it so that I can get so I know what the difference is, and I can confidently say that I prefer this method. But anyway, this is the classic easy knit dishcloth, which is another free pattern. The Purl Soho pattern is also free. This one is by Carolyn Stanton of Carousel Design. And I should say for this one, I started it on June 11th and finished it on June 13th, so it just took me a couple of days. I was kind of anxious to work through it to see how the process went, so I worked up pretty quickly. Anyway, I modified this pattern a little bit too, so it starts at one corner and you just increase until you get to the middle and then decrease again. I only increased to 52 stitches, and then I only decreased to 4 stitches, and then I bind those off normally, which is a bit of a modification from the pattern. I also use US 6 4mm needles for making this dishcloth. The yarn that I used was another yarn gifted to me by Danielle of Midwest Stitches. It's Premier Yarns Home Cotton in Rosy Cheeks colorway. It's 85% recycled cotton and 15% polyester worsted weight. And I love the colors in this. I have a lot of this yarn, so I'll definitely have enough to make a couple more. And yeah, this is just a super simple pattern that I have made a lot of. But you can kind of see how just comparing the sizes, this Purl Soho pattern is quite a bit larger. But I reduced my stitches on both of them from the original because I just prefer a little bit smaller of a dishcloth. Okay, so those are those, and then I only have one more finished object, which isn't really, it's not a real finished object, it's more of a frogging object, an object that remains from a frogged project. I don't remember when I finished this project, but I made a shawl using a free pattern by Emma of Potter and Bloom. She has a tutorial on her channel that goes through how to make this Miley hexagon. And I made a shawl out of all of these hexagons. I think I should be able to find a picture of it, so I will put that here so you can see what it looked like. I had, I don't think I had ever blocked this shawl, but I recently had gone through all of my knitted things and washed them to put them away for summertime so that they would be safe from moths or anything like that. And this was one of the items that I finally washed. I don't think I had ever wet blocked it or washed it. And the colors bled pretty badly on this shawl. There's still one spot on this little piece that you can maybe see. There's a bit of pink right here on this. It's not bad. If the whole thing had only been like that, it wouldn't have been so bad. But unfortunately, I have all of this yarn that you can see was pretty badly stained, and it just looked, I knew I wasn't gonna wear it with that much color bleeding throughout the shawl. So that was unfortunate, but honestly, I really hadn't gotten a ton of use out of this shawl. I've worn it a couple of times, but really not that often. So it's okay. I will use the yarn for something else. It will go into one of my scrappy blankets. So I'm planning on rolling this yarn up into probably 10 to 20 gram minis and then dyeing it some fun colors and then adding it to my DK weight scrappy blanket that I'm working on. But I couldn't part with all of it. I was frogging the project, and this was the original first bit of the shawl that I had made. I think I had originally started making this as thinking I would make it into a blanket, but then later on decided to make it into a shawl, and I couldn't part with this little bit, so I wanted to save a piece of it just as a memory of this project. And I decided to keep this bit as either like a doily, or I could use it as a pot holder, but it's too pretty for that. So I think I'll just put it like under a plant or something like that to save a piece of it. This is knit or crocheted all with DK weight yarn. And a lot of it is my own yarn that I dyed. Several of these colors are my own. Is this one? No, this is some alpaca yarn, as is this. I did just add one round around the outside of double crochet stitches to finish off this little doily-like thing. After I frogged it, I just went around that outside with a round of double crochet stitches, and then in the corners I just did the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet again. So I'm happy with having a little remnant of that project left over. Sad that I had to frog the whole thing, but it's all right. I put a color catcher in with it when I wet blocked it, but it still bled badly, so that was too bad. Okay, I think that's all of my finished objects. I know that was a lot. And I have 3 works in progress to share with you all. The first is being held in this bag that I made myself. And this is a project that I am knitting along with my cousin Allie. We're knitting this project kind of together. We're both knitting this project at the same time, using yarn that she dyed. It is a gradient set of 20 gram minis that she dyed in purples and pinks. And this is the Venetian Shawl by Amba O'Brien. Last time I recorded, I was just starting this project, so I was way down here where that progress keeper was also made for me by my cousin Allie. So cute. That's where I was last time I recorded, and you can see it started with this gorgeous deep indigo color, and then faded to the next color of the deep purple, and now I'm in a bit of a lighter purple. It's going to be about half purple, half pink into burgundy is how the colors fade. This pattern is really enjoyable, quite easy to memorize, It's got all these little eyelets in it, and kind of the colors fade into one another a little bit here. I'm enjoying it a lot. This marker is keeping track of which row I'm on. That is by Twill and Print. And I am using the recommended needles, which are US 5 3.75 millimeter needles. This yarn is fingering weight. I think it's an 80-20 blend, but I'm really enjoying working on this project. It's a fun one. I think it's so beautiful. Purple is my favorite color, so it makes me very happy to work on this project. So pretty. I have a few extra yarn tails here because I made a mistake when I did that first color transition. I forgot to include the eyelets. So I had to rip back a few rows and redo my project, or my knitting there, but I fixed it. But I have 2 extra yarn tails. If you can see, I have all these extra little bits I need to weave in yet, but that's going pretty well. I'm very, really enjoying this project. It's super fun to work on. It was originally designed to use up 10 20-gram minis, which is exactly what Allie dyed for this fade set. Okay, my next work in progress is one of my Scrappy Blankets that I have shared with you all before, but not in a while. This is just a simple garter stitch blanket that I am knitting using up my scraps of fingering weight yarn. I'm holding the fingering weight double, and I am just randomly grabbing scraps from my, what I have in my scrap basket. The scraps that I use for this measure between 3 and 20 grams. So that's kind of the range of scraps that I'm putting into this blanket. I got the idea for this blanket after watching Amber of A Lovely Yarn. She is making a similar blanket to this. I'm using, I think, US 8 5mm needles. Double check. Yes, that's right. I don't remember how many I cast on, but I did the exact same thing that Amber said to do, or that what she did. She cast on 240 stitches, and that's what I did as well. I am adding I slip the last 3 stitches with my yarn in front every row, and so I get this nice I-cord edging along each side, which I love. And I'm using the Russian join method whenever I change yarns. I see I've missed a strand of yarn right here. I'm gonna have to catch that on my next row. I have one little loop here that I didn't catch. Anyway, I really love this project because I love scrappy projects. I love things that don't take any mind power at all, just to have on the go. This one's too big to travel with really easily, but it's a nice project to work on while we're watching TV or something like that. So here is a progress keeper marking where I was last time I showed off this project. This is a beautiful progress keeper by Tracy of Grizzly Knits. Little bunny rabbit with a pretty stone on there. And that's how much progress I've made since the last time I showed this off. Yeah, it's just a really fun project to work on. I love it, and I love how it's looking. You can see all the color progression here. I just think it's so much fun how it's just completely random, but so beautiful, I think. My last work in progress is a new project that I am holding in this beautiful bag by Tanny Casey. And I have another row counter on here by Twill and Print, but I'm not actually using that right now. I might use it down the road here. We'll see how this project goes. This is a pattern that I was inspired to make after watching It Is a Sarah, is that right? That doesn't sound right now. It's a Sarah, yeah, It Is a Sarah podcast. I love watching her. She puts out a new episode twice a week, and I find her projects to be really inspiring a lot of times. So she had a while ago talked about this pattern and said that she wanted to make it, and she's already made it. And I hadn't heard about it until she mentioned it on her podcast. It's called the Lowrider Jumper by Iron Lamb. And I thought it looked so nice on Sarah's podcast as well. She, the original pattern, here I'll show you a picture, is designed to have long sleeves, but Sarah made hers with short sleeves, and I'm planning on making mine with short sleeves too. But here you can get an idea of what the pattern looks like. So it's a crocheted jumper that's worked from the top down. And it's made using DK weight yarn. And the hook, I'm using the recommended hook, which is a 4mm, a G 4mm hook. So I am making this, I'm not sure how this is going to turn out because I'm using some pretty much scraps of yarn. The main color that I'm using here is Lion Brand Kobu in the beige colorway. This is a 50% cotton and 50% rayon from bamboo yarn. And you can see here that I got it for $1.49 per skein. I have 2 of these and I got them from my thrift shop, one of my local thrift shops. And then last summer I also, well, last time I recorded I was wearing a tank top that I had knit, and I put some of this yarn into that, and I also made another tank top that I made completely in this color as well. This is another Kobu by Lion Brand in the peach colorway. Anyway, I'm going to be making, I'm going to use up all of this yarn. Like I said, I have 2 skeins of this yarn. I'm going to see how far that gets me. And then I have that peach color, and then I also have 2 skeins of this kind of yarn, which is another Lion Brand, but this is Comfy Cotton Blend, which is another DK weight, 50% cotton, 50% polyester. The colorways I have are Chai Latte and Driftwood. I'm not sure what I'm going to do once I run out of the main color. I'm pretty positive it won't get me through the entire garment. I am just going to kind of play it by ear as I go along and see what color. I think probably this color would look pretty good if I needed to kind of stripe it in at some point. I've also thought about adding in some granny squares. In the original pattern you can see here that she's added granny squares along the cuffs. I'm not going to be making mine long sleeve like that, but I thought maybe I could incorporate some granny squares even along the waist or along the sleeves, maybe depending on how long I want to make them or how much yarn I have, how far the yarn goes. But I'm going to kind of just play around with what I've got and hopefully it will work out. I'm making the medium size. I think I'm getting gauge with the recommended hook. I haven't wet blocked it and I didn't do a gauge swatch. I just measured my gauge as I worked up this, and it looks like it's measuring correctly, so hopefully it'll be all right. Actually, I'm making the medium size, but I don't think that my stitches are varying from the large size. I think the medium and the large are exactly the same up to this point where I've gone so far. So since it's top down, it'll be great. I can just try it on as I go, and if it doesn't look like it's going to be big enough, because my gauge might be a little bit tighter than hers. No, is that right? Yeah, tighter than hers. So anyway, I might need to go up to the large size depending on how it's fitting, but I think I can try it on and also play that by ear. So anyway, I'm excited about this project. I think it will be fun. This yarn is not the best to crochet with. I've knitted with it before, like I said, and I don't remember it being that bad, but crocheting with it, it splits super easily, and I keep getting little loops of a single strand. Maybe it was hard to knit with. Now that I'm saying that, I kind of remember. Maybe it was hard to knit with as well, but it splits very easily. It's got several little stringy plies that once in a while you'll get 1 or 2 of those little plies that come apart from the rest of it slipping off the hook, and so it makes a little loop that isn't caught in the work, which is kind of annoying, but I'm just finding that I work really slowly. If I crochet really slowly, that it's easier not to drop those little strands as much. So those are all of the projects I have to share with you. I do have a little bit of yarn to share with you as well, because when Isabella sent me this skein of yarn, she didn't just send me this skein, she sent me several skeins of her yarn. She's actually going off to college, and she was just destashing some of her yarn that she thought I would be able to use. So I'm so grateful for your generosity, Isabella. That was unexpected and very, very sweet of you to do. She also sent me this extra ball, again, of the Bernat baby coordinates in this blue color. So I'll be able to use that up with the extra of the white probably, and I do have a little bit of the peach color left over as well from the baby blanket. So I might use those three together in something. And then she sent me lots of other goodies. There's one more little extra goodie that she sent me. Where is it? She made this sweet little gummy bear, crochet gummy bear, out of this really soft and fluffy yarn. Isn't that adorable? Little stuffy. And then she made this, I think she said at her local library, using 3D printing, little sheep. And I think she said she also made these on 3D printing, they're also gummy bear shapes. And they're little stitch markers. That's so sweet. Thank you. And then she sent me lots of yarn too. So she sent me 2 skeins of this cotton batik by Premier as well. This is in the Lush Lavender colorway. It's worsted weight 100% cotton, I believe. Yes, 100% cotton. So this pretty purple color. And she sent me 3 skeins of the Bernat cotton tots in the, just a color number? No, I think Wonder Dreams is the colorway. This is also 100% cotton. Is it worsted weight, I wonder? I think it's worsted weight, but I can't see it on here. But anyway, it's kind of got a kinked look to the yarn as well. And these pretty pastel baby-like colors. I'm not sure what I'll do with this, but they're beautiful. Then I've got 3 skeins of this really pretty green color in the I Love This Cotton yarn, which is 100% cotton as well. And apple green is the colorway. And I love this one so much. 4 skeins of same I Love This Cotton yarn in the Sprinkle Me This colorway. So it's a light gray, and then it's got all these fun neon specks throughout it. I wonder if that's enough to make a tank top or something like that. I don't know. It's so cute though. I love those little specks. And then 2 skeins of Yarn Bee Pima Suprema in the Merlot colorway, which is 100% Pima cotton worsted weight as well. And then lastly, she sent me 2 skeins of Patton's Crocheting Socks yarn in the Northern Lights colorway, which is sport 2 fingering weight yarn, 75% wool, 25% nylon. Those are so pretty as well. Love those colors. So thank you, Isabella. That was so generous of you, so thoughtful of you. I really appreciate your generosity. Thank you so very much. I think that's all that I have to share with you all today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you really enjoyed this episode, and I hope you all are doing really well. Take care. Bye-bye.